What if I told you that the intellectual architecture of the Hindu Rashtra wasn't just built by men in saffron robes and khaki shorts? What if I told you that for decades, some of our most celebrated, most radical, most progressive intellectuals, in their quest to decolonize the Indian mind, inadvertently sharpened the very knives now being used to gut the Indian Republic? It is a difficult, uncomfortable, and profoundly important argument. It's an argument laid out with devastating clarity by the scholar Meera Nanda in her latest book, Postcolonial Theory and the Making of Hindu Nationalism. And today, we need to understand it, because an idea that begins in a university seminar just doesn't stay there. It travels from the academic journal to the political rally to the laws that now govern your life. This is the story of the strange bedfellows, the 5 crucial ways that well-intentioned academic theories help build the Hindu Rashtra. Charge number 1, turning criticism into treason. Now the theory sounded radical, even noble. For years, post-colonial thinkers, giants like Ashish Nandy in his book The Intimate Enemy or Partha Chatterjee, argued that colonialism's greatest crime wasn't just theft, but the colonization of the mind. They argued that Western ideas like science, rationality, secularism, the rule of law were a mental cage, that to think in terms of these was to be a pathetic copy, to suffer from mental slavery. Mental slavery. Does that phrase ring a bell? Well, it should. It is now the official ideology of the Indian state. The Prime Minister talks of shedding the so-called slave mentality, what he calls gulami ki mansikta. He speaks of 1200 years of slavery, dishonestly lumping centuries of Mughal rule with the British Raj. This is the entire premise of massively popular books like J. Sai Deepak's India, that is Bharat, which demands we tear up our constitution simply because it's a colonial document. The connection is clear and direct. The post-colonial left gave the Hindu right the intellectual framework and the moral legitimacy for their project. They made it fashionable to see universal ideas as foreign poison. So now, when you defend scientific temper, you're not just debating policy. You are a Macaulay Putra, child of Lord Macaulay, a child of the colonizer. When you argue for secularism, you're not defending the constitution. You have what is called a slave mentality. They weaponized an academic critique to turn dissent into treason. They shifted the battleground from reason to identity, from debate to denunciation. Charge number 2, making science just another belief system. The academic idea was this: modern science is not a universal truth. Influential figures like Vandana Shiva to Claude Alvarez argued it was just another ethno-science, specifically the ethno-science of the so-called Christian West. They claimed its objectivity was a myth, and that it was arrogant to judge traditional Indian knowledge like astrology or ritual healing by standards of science. All knowledge systems, they said, are equal. And what has been the result? An absolute carnival of absurdity promoted by the state itself. We have claims at the Indian Science Congress that ancient Indians flew airplanes. We have the Ayush Ministry, flush with public money, making dangerous and unsubstantiated claims about curing everything from COVID-19 to cancer. We have Vedic mathematics being pushed in schools, a set of calculation tricks, neither Vedic nor mathematic, packaged as ancient wisdom. You see the logic? If science is just a Western way of knowing things, who's to say that Vedic science isn't the Indian way? As scholar Meera Nanda warns, by relativizing truth, these intellectuals created an intellectual vacuum. They flattened the landscape. They took away the authority of the umpire, and into that vacuum, state-backed superstition, marching proudly under the flag of decolonization. Charge number 3, attacking secularism as a foreign disease. For decades, we were told by brilliant minds like T.N. Madan and Ashish Nandy that secularism was an alien concept to India, that it was a European concept, a product of their fight between the church and the state. India, they argued, had its own natural, authentic way of being tolerant. This is the sophisticated academic source of the crude political jibe we hear now of pseudo-secularism. The Hindu right doesn't say they are against secularism. No, they say they are for true secularism that respects the faith of the Hindu majority. This was the exact logic used to justify the Citizenship Amendment Act. The new intellectual warriors of the right, from Rajiv Malhotra to the Kent School, have eagerly amplified this very argument, that secularism is a Christian idea, unfit for a dharmic land. But let's be honest about this so-called natural tolerance of the past. What was it? Well, often it was the tolerance of the caste system. Communities living separate, unequal, and governed by brutal, divinely ordained rules of purity and pollution. It was not a tolerance between free and equal citizens. The secular state, for all its flaws, holds the promise that an individual, you, has rights against the so-called mob. By branding that promise as foreign, its intellectual critiques weaken the very wall that was meant to protect it. Charge number 4. Romanticizing the so-called pure, God-loving common man. The academic theory was to idealize the subaltern, the ordinary, non-elite Indian, as a reservoir of pure, authentic tradition. In his hugely influential book, Provincializing Europe, the historian Dipesh Chakrabarty urged us to accept the supernatural beliefs of the people, their gods, their spirits, not as just metaphors, but as reality itself. Their religiosity was framed as a noble resistance against the cold, modern state. This perfectly mirrors the populist poison of the Hindu right today. They claim to be the sole voice of the pure people, the simple, God-fearing Hindu against a corrupt, English-speaking, deracinated elite. This is the engine driving the entire temple movement from Ayodhya to Kasi. The argument is that the faith of the people must crush the facts of law and history. By romanticizing this authentic faith, its intellectual champions conveniently ignored its dark side, the iron cage of caste, the subjugation of women, the violence of superstition. They created a false choice. You are either with the people and their faith, or you are a westernized enemy. The Hindu right simply walked into that space and declared, "We are the people, we are the faith." And this leads us to the final chilling warning, the Weimar analogy. The scholar Meera Nanda makes a comparison that should stop you in your tracks. The intellectual climate in India today, she argues, mirrors that of the Weimar Republic in Germany in the 1920s. There too, brilliant conservative revolutionaries, philosophers like Heidegger, jurists like Carl Schmitt, despised liberal democracy. They launched a total war on reason and science in the name of an authentic German culture. Their intellectual revolt against the Enlightenment did not create the romantic utopia they dreamed of. Instead, it created an atmosphere of anti-rationalism and contempt for democracy that prepared the ground, that cleared the path for the Nazis to seize power. This is the ultimate warning. The danger is not that these left intellectuals are fascists. That is a crude and false claim. The danger is that their ideas, when pursued without a vigilant sense of the political consequences, create a wasteland where only monsters can thrive. So what are we, the citizens, supposed to do? Well, we are supposed to think. To defend reason is not to be a slave to the West. It is to be an heir to our own magnificent traditions of descent, from the Buddha and the Lokayatas to Phule and Ambedkar, who dared to question the gods of their time. To defend secularism is not to be deracinated. It is to defend the one principle that allows a nation of 1.5 billion people, of every faith and no faith, to live together as equals under the law. The struggle against communal fascism requires more, not less, of the critical thinking, unflinching, evidence-based reason that these fashionable theories sought to discard. The architecture of our republic, battered as it is the only shelter we have. To help tear it down in the name of an imaginary pure past is to invite a truly dark future. One must think, and think with rigor. That is the only way.